Gym styles. Do food cults count as cults? Okay, Jim, thanks for asking me this. And actually, I'm not going to get into a big, long diatribe about food cults right now. What I want to actually take it, well, the reason I'm taking this up is because, of course, there are food cults. There are cults that exist everywhere, all around us, all the time. We are surrounded by cults. We are not surrounded by destructive cults all the time, though. Okay, there is a difference between these things. This terminology is important. And a cult, if you open up a dictionary and look, is any group that is aligned around a focused, centralized purpose and tends to be pretty dedicated to that group and to the leadership. But it's not a destructive cult just because it's a cult, okay? Destructive cult is different. Destructive cults are where you get the concentration on money, sex, power, where you have narcissistic leadership, where you have a codependent, destructive relationship between the leader and the followers, where you have us versus them thinking, enforced black and white thinking, penalties for leaving, disconnection and shunning, et cetera, et cetera. All the tools in the toolbox of destructive cult leaders are all in those groups. Regular groups could, just non-extremist groups can be referred to as cults, and there's all kinds of them. They're all over the place. And what you're talking about when you're talking about a cult is you're talking about a group that has a culture. That's where culture comes from, is cult, right? These words match up. And all groups create their own internal culture and structure and rules and guidelines and all that kind of stuff. All groups do. Even loosely formed groups have some semblance of order. That's what, it's what makes them a group. And they develop a culture, a collection of ideas and attitudes and rules and guidelines for how they're going to operate and interact with one another. And these can be very, very formalized, or these can be very loosely organized. The more formalized they are, the more strict the rule system is, the more maybe there's an enforcement system, the more dedicated people could be to it, maybe the more money is being looked into or sought for the group, et cetera. Any group forms this culture. It is when things in this culture become extreme that it moves over into the destructive side, right? Maybe I should have said that maybe I should have led with that. Because that's how it goes bad, right? Any group can go bad. Any cult can become a destructive cult when that culture is led over into a direction of authoritarianism, thought-stopping cliches, and the motivated reasoning and the coercive persuasion that comes into it, right? In other words, when the leader turns bad and starts abusing the followers, and the followers go along with it and keep it going and support it and all of that, right? And that's how it goes bad. So any group's capable of that under narcissistic or bad leadership or authoritarian, guidelines or rules, and can go off into crazy land, right? Any group can. There's no group anywhere in the world, including anti-cult groups. Any group could go cultish, right? That's just the fact. Now, that fact doesn't mean that all groups are going to go cultish or going to go into destructive land. I guess you could say it's on a spectrum, and any group can be sort of plotted based on these characteristics that we look at. So the answer to your question, Jim, is yes, food cults count as cults. Any cults count as cults. And any cult can become a destructive cult given the right orientation and push in that direction.